So everything.
We should close the door.
Oh, we need to close the door. There's just tape here to just keep us taped in. Awesome. So it's showing up on Twitch.
Is there another tweet that I should tweet?
Good.
And then Facebook. There we are.
Facebook. Let me get the chat going.
And the comments will just show up here.
Comments will click on comments, and then yes.
Okay.
Comments will just show up, and then go there.
Oh, hey everybody. We already got people.
There we go.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Getting.
This guy?
Yeah.
He's the worst.
Okay, we are good. Are the people in the chat?
Yeah, we got Glucose, Patrick, Fryson, Base of the.
Okay.
There's suspense in that name.
Are you gonna?
You don't know.
You're gonna read every name? You think you should?
Well, Mimhoff.
Oh, there we go.
Sure. I mean, in case
Oh, here we are. 24 viewers. Okay, awesome. Welcome everybody to the Oath Q&A with Cole. My name is Gates. I am actually the marketing director over here at Leader. And then Cole, what do you do?
I design games mostly.
Yeah, like Root.
Mm-hmm.
Just a small, tiny one. And then also is the designer for Oath. We're just going to answer some questions today. We're going to wait for kind of people to drop into the chat and stuff like that. Other than that, how does it feel to be 5 days out from a Kickstarter?
It feels good. Busy. Feels busy. There's always, like, no matter how much we plan ahead, things always kind of coalesce right at the end. So
Yeah.
I feel like half my time right now is Kickstarter prep, and the other half is development.
Yeah. She's been working on the Tabletop Simulator, which we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. I have my advent calendar, as Patrick puts it, on my wall that I've been ripping off. And I've slowly started getting into the delirious time.
Oh, yeah.
Because I walked in today being like, it's 6 days. But no, it's actually 5. So it's going to be pretty good. Are we good, Nick?
Yeah, everything still seems good.
Okay, great.
Nobody's
Cool.
We're still online, and nobody's saying anything about the quality yet. So that's
Excellent.
There we go.
Those are the only two things you can ask for, really.
Yeah. So we can just kick it off
Let's do
with the big major questions. For those who don't know, Oath is coming to Kickstarter next Tuesday, January 14th. It will be that morning.
Mm-hmm.
As it stands right now, we're still getting a couple more quotes to pin down the price.
Mm-hmm.
So the best thing we can tell you is that the price will definitely be on at launch.
Right.
We'll be there. We can guarantee that part. As far as the details of the game, I know that we've kind of changed some details very recently as far as player count. If you want to go into that.
Yeah, so we originally had positioned the game as a 1 to 5 player game. It now looks like it will scale to 6, and that we were able to do that sort of inexpensively. And so Oath is a 1 to 6 player game. It has a bot that is used for the 1 and 2 player, and then the rest of the player counts you don't necessarily need to have the bot for. Yeah, I don't know. How deeply do you want me to go? The overview?
Even go into like the overview of the game.
All right,
just
cool.
a bit.
So Oath is a political game. It's a really, so it's a very, it's a, let me think about the best way to position this. So Oath is bigger than our usual games. The box is larger, there's more stuff in the game, and it's a giant, almost sandboxy, large strategy game where the game remembers how you play it and then adapts to the way that you're playing it, so that you can make a decision in one game and it could have reverberations for dozens of games afterward. There are no pre-scripted narratives, there are no kind of apps or anything associated with it. You can keep playing it forever, you'll never destroy a card or anything, and you're always free to reset the box back to its kind of factory default if you want to.
Yeah. I think also a big thing that we actually haven't shown that is over in the hot box.
The hot box
right over there is the Chancellor Meeple.
Oh, this is scary because I can't see.
Oh yeah, no, we're watching that.
Oh, this is good.
Well, if anything, you guys want to point to the left. So you're pointing at
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm just showing. He's lifting off.
Yeah. So we have the Chancellor. Chancellor Meeple hasn't been seen, and then we also have the black character, and then some warbands. And those are the things that came in on
Chancellor's gonna be a
Tuesday.
stage.
So we'll have them chill out over there together.
There you go. Look at that. Yeah, there's the black player pawn, and then I'll show you guys some war bands. So here's the red war band, and then show you the purple one. And then one thing I'll note about this, our color palette is very colorblind friendly. But just to go a little extra mile, we also have unique screen printing on the banners on the war bands, so you can tell them apart that way.
And I brought in a cute little woodland alliance.
Oh yeah, for scale, here's
Scale.
a little woodland alliance little friend. There's a war band. You'll see the war band's like a little wider, just about as tall. And then for scale against a pawn, we'll put a player pawn right there. These are big, chunky boys.
Yeah. So how much, I know that we've talked about it, but how much wood is going to be, or like the
A lot, like twice as much as in Root Core. There's about 70 to 80 pieces that are screen printed plus some additional wood.
Yeah.
It's a ton. There's a ton of wood in the box.
Yeah. So all of the screen printed meeples I think that you enjoyed in Root, you will get your fix.
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm going to be going over some questions that we kind of pre-took before the stream, but if you guys have questions in the chat, we have Nick in here. We also have Patrick, who's also in the chat too, and we will definitely ship them or put them in there too. So first being is I know that we've talked about a Tabletop Simulator Mod. Where is that at right now?
So there, you may see screenshots and reviews and in things that I post from a Tabletop Simulator Mod. We have an excellent mod that is being built right now by Train Brain Games. The Tabletop Simulator Mod is complete. It works. It plays. But right now we're using it for development only and for people who are doing review copies. We may release it wider during the Kickstarter. We're not really sure yet. But for those testing the game, they are using it. There will be a TTS mod later.
Yeah.
Which is going to be hopefully pretty tricked out and have lots of useful scripts and a lot of features built into it.
Yeah, absolutely. What about a print and play too?
We may do one of those as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that's been.
Yeah, it is. This is a Root was a hard print and play. Vast TMM was a hard print and play. There are just a lot of pieces.
Yeah.
This game has so much more.
Yeah, I was about to say, for a print and play, like if you wanted to go get it nicely done, it's probably going to equal the same cost as the game of you backing it.
Yeah, and for
out.
Root, one of the things about the print and play that we could do is we took that print and play that we released through, I think, 3 different releases over the course of the campaign. That basically you needed full updates each time. And then if you wanted to keep your kit somewhat current, you could usually get away by just printing certain sheets. The way this game is structured, it'd be just a little bit more difficult to do version control. So currently we're not going to be doing any print and plays during the campaign. We may release one later.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the big thing with the TTS. The reason why we haven't been opening it up is just for containment right now.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing if we can get to that point during the Kickstarter, and if not, it's definitely going to be released.
Yeah, it is done and stable. The biggest thing I don't want to have happen is if we give folks the file and it gets passed around. I don't want somebody to have an old version bothering people with slightly different versions, and then everyone's wasting their time, because if they would have waited like a month or two, they'd be in a position of greater stability.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one question that was in the chat here is, who else from Leader is on the project? I also didn't mention that Kyle Farron, of course, is doing the art for the game, but everybody in the studio
works on the game.
Yeah. So we currently, actually, Patty Hoon is working on the graphic design right now. We have Marshall with shipping and logistics, and we have Clay with all the sales and everything like that too. So everybody in the studio, we can go down the whole list.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a different, like the way we operate in the studio is a little different from a normal game company. In a normal game company, you'll kind of assemble teams and you rely a lot on contractors.
Yeah.
For us, with rare exception, most everyone is employed full time. And everyone helps work on the game. So I've been doing most of the development and design to this point. Kyle's been doing most of the art. We've together been doing a lot of the art direction, world building around the game. And then everyone has been helping play test.
Yeah.
And in the way that also leads to development, everyone's kind of been helping a little bit on development. And then the one person who isn't on staff, Josh Yearsley, who's the editor of Root, is returning as the editor for this project. And then we have the usual team. Carol's doing customer service. I'm trying to think of anybody else. Ted is
who's our accountant.
Yeah,
He
get everybody.
Yeah, I think that is everybody. It's like going around the office.
Right.
It's going
Patrick's
around
the owner.
Doors. Yeah. So, and that kind of is a good segue to an earlier question somebody had asked, being like, what was the influence that you took outside of the game that kind of helped? So, example, that you've had the idea for how the player pieces would look before handing it off to Kyle. So, like, how does that relationship work between you and Kyle? Because I personally think it's unique.
Yeah, so we, Kyle and I talk a lot about the projects we're working on, and we, for Oath, is a lot of ideas that I think we talked about when we were talking about Root. I mean, especially with like the way Root's pieces are stylized. I know I don't want to speak out of turn for Kyle, but I feel like both of us wanted a presentation that like built on that style as opposed to using plastic minis or using chips or different things, or using a more realistic silhouette for the warbands. And so, I'll be working on a design, and in the early stages of a design, I will send Kyle messages like, okay, I think this is the shape this design might take. What do you like? One, do you see this adapting to any questions that you're working on? Because the way I think both of us understand that we have like a big list of like questions about our craft that we're interested in, and then we want to make sure that whatever we're working on is resonating with the other person's list.
Yeah.
And so like for the warband design, so these meeples, there's not one displayed right now. I'll put one up while I talk about the warband meeples. So the game can cover a lot of different things, and so it was important from a pretty early stage to find a warband shape, term, general physical presence that could just be a lot of things. It could be, mounted archers. It could be like a big hulking scary guy. It could be a lot of things. So we have to find a shape that is able to communicate that space. And, I offer very bad sketches sometimes, but mostly Kyle can sort of take the word salads I give him and then turn it into something that makes sense. And we try also, I think, to give each other like a lot of space to play. So when we were talking about this game is really complicated, demands on the visual information. There's like a lot on the table. And so early on, I told that, Kyle, this is an important part of this design is that there are all these like information layers. And Kyle said, oh, well, this is great because I kind of want to do a map in this style, but the cards in this different style, and then trying to find a middle point. And so I never feel like I dictate to Kyle, or at least I try not to dictate to Kyle specific instructions about how I want art to look. He knows a lot more about it than I do. Instead, I just try to have him understand what the design is going to be doing. And so a couple of sort of quick examples on that. One of them is when we were building the game, we wanted to make a fantasy game, but we really wanted to avoid a lot of the traditional tropes of fantasy gaming. The biggest one is like racialized depictions of the different peoples, right? Kind of like, oh, if you're skinny and you have long hair, you're an elf. And then it also kind of having this like sort of weird background to like what those racialized races. I mean, it's their archetypes, how they kind of map on, very unkindly onto histories of racism. So we're like, okay, we want a fantasy setting where we get around that. We just want to be really conscious about what we're working in. So when we were setting up the different suits of the game has 6 suits, and so we've been talking a lot about like depictions of race in fantasy, and then Kyle had the suggestion like, oh, well, like what if you build the suits instead of around like nations? What if they're built around like ideas? And I think Kyle called them like cultural aspects. And so he gave me a big list of different cultural aspects, and then I went through it and like edited a couple when we got to 6. And then that was the seed of the game's 6 suits. So like from the conversation about like art and philosophy and the sort of general conversations around craft, it sort of draws a line eventually to like the actual game. And then the elements of the game. So mostly it's a lot of us chatting back and forth about this stuff.
And I think it's important to know that Kyle is on staff with us.
Yes, he is.
Because I think traditionally in the gaming world, like we've seen a lot of our friends that do other games and they'll go to another publisher and everything like that. But Kyle's actually on staff with us. So he's very involved in the world building and the lore aspect along with you guys in your conversation, which Kyle will also have a live stream with us during the Kickstarter where he'll be talking more about the art and the world that he formed too. Just to kind of cover a couple of questions that are coming up a little bit in the stream is, as far as the pledge goals and what they're going to be expecting is, I think it's fair to say that we can say that there will be a pledge level. We are going to be offering, there will be stuff that is included. The benefit to backing the Kickstarter is that, one, you're definitely helping us be able to support and fund a game, but also you will be getting it earlier and you will be getting stuff included into the game. Yep. There are no exclusives. There are no promos. That's something that Leader hasn't done ever.
Yeah, if you're curious like how the Kickstarter might be structured, take a look at like the Underworld Kickstarter. This one has a similar structure to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as far as kind of the timeline and the logistics, I know a lot of people had been asking me is like, where are you at in design right now? What's the expected development cycle for it?
So this, our development cycle will complete in April or May. Probably closer to April, and that seems like a long way away, but mostly that's just me padding. This design is further along than any game that I've ever taken to Kickstarter, like by leaps and bounds. It's certainly farther along than Root was. It's about where Premiere 2 was, or a little bit further along than it. So a lot of the design time that we have left in our budget is for really aggressively doing balance testing, really seeing the campaign in sort of strange and different places, doing a lot of usability studies, and then of course filling out like the game's massive art list.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think an estimate too is we'll definitely be able to probably see the game early this time next year.
Yes.
So
it is our hope that we can have it in people's hands by this time next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think another good question is, what kind of players do you think will enjoy the game?
So if you like interactive games, and it isn't necessarily that you have to like conflict games to like this game. There are ways of playing this game pretty peacefully, and you can still find a lot to like, but you have to like interactive games. If you do not like games where you interact with the other players at the table, you should definitely not back this game. You will be very unhappy with it. It is more interactive than Root. It is of similar level to like a PAX level. There's just a lot of systems, and basically every system in the game is hydraulic. You push one thing, another thing pops up, and if there's a player's head who's right next to the thing that's going to pop up, they're going to get a little bruise.
Very good. And then I think another one that kind of rides off of that is the game lending itself. So you had mentioned like it's a game that remembers itself. The game changes as you go from one to the next. How long do you think that somebody could probably run a campaign and have options?
I think if you wanted to just explore, if you wanted to see every card, in an ideal world, which is like, it's not going to happen, but like in a perfect run to see every card, I think you need about 50 plays, which is a huge amount. I think most people, what we've found from testers who've run the campaign quite a bit, sometimes around like the 15th to 20th or 25th play, they'll want to reset the box just to see what a different branch might go down. I am building the game with the intent that like you could easily sink 100 games into it and still be surprising yourself, because not only is there a giant card base, it's really the synergy of the different cards that creates the different dynamics. So in each game you'll have maybe 10 cards in play and then another 15 in circulation out of a card list of like about 200 unique cards. So which cards are in combination can lead to very, very different dynamics in the game.
Yeah. Somebody also asked, I think in one of the Discords, is it possible for a deck to completely run out of a given suit, and how can you get the suit back in the deck?
That's a good question. So the way it works is during the reset phase, which is called the Chronicle phase in the game, you essentially place an order into the archive based on what happened in the game. So, you know, if you won because you activated your militant order knights, then the game says, okay, we're going to put 6 new cards from the order suit from the archive are going to be added into the game. If the archive can't fill that order, what it does is it looks at the discard, which is the stack of cards called the dispossessed, which whenever you add 6 cards into the game, you remove 6, and they get added to the dispossessed. And you figure out whatever the weakest suit is in the deck, and that's recorded using this the suit supply system, which we don't need to go into. But basically, whatever suit is least present in the deck, some cards will be added from that suit, so they'll come back into circulation. And then all of the cards that have been getting kind of trashed will get resorted back into their suits, so the archive will heal itself.
Okay.
So there is no end point, and what will happen is about every 8 to 12 games, you'll have that kind of like little soft recovery. Now that could lead to the really weak suit emerging and becoming very powerful, or it could kind of become a middling suit. You don't really know. It could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and with that mechanic cycle in mind, how does that play into the storytelling that you're trying to tell with the game?
Yeah. So the what's happening in the story of the game is there are one of the funny things about this game is the way it treats outsiders and kind of influences that are not accounted in the game system. So if you think of another design that has a kind of rolling campaign style of something like Small World or History of the World, in those games you're drafting what are essentially outsiders who are going to come storming through the gates and tear everything up. This game doesn't really do that. The problems are always kind of internal. And then when the suits come back, the idea is those are people from the outside of the game re-entering in some way, and then maybe the second time they'll find a home, or maybe they won't, and they'll get pushed out. So it's up to the players.
Very cool. A question that Matt from Space Cats and Peace Turtles actually said, since the win condition for the game slightly changes between playthroughs, and the Chancellor is really the only unique power in the game, what kind of strategic decisions does Cole see the community engaging in lieu of faction guides?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So there, one thing, whenever I'm designing working on a project, I will always be thinking about what is the quality of a strategy guide that could be possibly created for the thing I'm working on. And if I'm finding that I'm having a hard time thinking about what that guide looks like, then there's probably something wrong with the design, like at a very core level. So what I think that the core system is actually really there's a lot to talk about in terms of like you could have a three-piece series on like principles of campaigning, like when to fight, how to fight, mistakes to make, and then understand how the different card powers might feed into that system. In the same way, like you could have a piece kind of about each core element of the game. You can talk about that. And then you certainly, in the way a faction guide might look, you could spotlight the Chancellor and talk about what they're dealing with. Because even though they're playing with almost the same set of rules as the Exiles, the pressure of being the Chancellor, and I had a player kind of tell me this last night when they played the Chancellor for the first time, it is a very different feeling. Because you start with a lot of power and very little momentum. So it's a little bit like the way the cats are in Root, and you just have to kind of shift how you're thinking about the game. And there's a lot to be said about starting with the Chancellor, not starting with the Chancellor. Along those same lines, like each of the 4 victory conditions has its own strategic paths kind of built into it. One thing that I have found is quite true about the game is that when players first learn the game, the first 2 turns, they tend to play very, very tactically. The games have really high like battle attrition. A lot of armies are running into each other. They're very lossy. And then once people, after it usually starts in game 2, sometimes it takes till game 3, players start realizing how much they can plan. So that like the game looks tactical, but executing a plan could take 2 or even 3 turns. The game is only 8 turns long max. So what will happen is, the way I tend to think about it is like in this game, you get 1 or 2 javelins that you're going to throw. And you need to figure out when you're going to throw them. And like what is the right footing. And then you're having to deal with a lot of other concerns. But like it's really about those kind of crisis points. There isn't a lot. Last thing I'll say is like there isn't a lot of like arc. So that like in a game of TI, for instance, you start small. You got to colonize planets. There's like the game kind of has like a 3-act structure. This like starts you at the end of the second act. Like it gets you right into the heart of it. There's not really much of a build-up.
I think a good example of just seeing the gameplay, if people haven't seen it before, is on our YouTube channel. We have the recording of our last live stream right after Christmas, and there was those conflict moments. It was interesting to watch you guys go through, because I know like Ryan had done like a very large one, and how that affected the whole thing. Or there's several times that Marshall could have won and ended up winning.
So, like I think basically in terms of strategy guides, you could do a lot of work on the different gameplay systems, and then you could also do work, like you can slice the deck in two ways. You can slice it by suit into the 6 suits. They all have their own different dynamic. And then if you didn't want to slice it by suit, you could slice it by card type.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of like 5 different things that cards can do generally, like action modifiers and different things.
Yeah.
And you could group those and talk about those in productive
For
ways.
sure. It'll be fun to see where the BGG's at.
Yeah, I have no idea. We'll see.
Another question is describing the shared Tableau mechanism. We don't have the board out right now.
Right. I can build one.
Yeah, but how does that mechanic work, and what influences why you would play a card to a location instead to your own Tableau?
That's a great question. So basically, the cards are lined up in a row. I'll kind of do this up here so you can see it. And then cards that are played in the game will kind of exist on these different cards. So we'll do it like, that's legal. We don't want that. Say it's like this. So when you have your pawn, you'll visit these different sites, and then you get to interact with cards on the shared Tableau. You would essentially get to interact with a card if you rule it, if it's in your cohort, or if you're just visiting it, if you have access to it. So why would you play a card that you would have to share? Well, the biggest reason is you only have a cohort size of 3, which is also your hand, and it's really expensive to play a card face up on your cohort. And it may have implications that you don't want to deal with. Your cohort also determines your popularity. So you could be faced with like, oh, this is a very powerful card, but it is from a suit that is not popular. So it will hurt my popularity, which has other ramifications, but I still want the power. So I could play it to a site I rule. That I still get the power, which is great, but now I'm not tacked on with the popularity. So that's one reason why you might play to a site. The other reason is that when you play to a site, the suit's very happy with you, and they'll give you a favor, which is the currency of the game that you can then spend on other things. So like those are the 2 immediate considerations of like why you would bother to play, or the 3 immediate considerations of why you'd want to be playing on the board. Scarcity of cohort, the fact that you get an extra buck if you play it on the site, and then also trying to deal with your popularity.
Yeah. Kind of pulling to components again, somebody was asking, so Space Biff posted his review preview last night, and he was using metal coins. Is that going to be something that's in our game? He was using his own.
Yeah, he was using his coins.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure what game they were from. So we, along the lines of our other Kickstarters, we're going to be bundling some freebies in for Kickstarter backers. These are things that will cost money. In some cases, they'll be even a little expensive after the campaign's over if you're just trying to find them in a game store.
Yeah.
But if you back them on the Kickstarter, you'll get them kind of included with your pledge. They don't cost anything extra. And this is a funny game because normally we have kind of like a free expansion, but with Oath, everything is in the box. It like already includes just tons and tons of content. So the add-ons are cosmetic or like little gameplay improvers. And one of the things that we're going to be adding is metal coins for the favor. These are going to be really nice. So they're not only will be a little bit bigger than your usual metal coin, they'll be thicker and they'll have a nice thick ridge around them, so they're very easy to stack. It's really important, like a little bit like a poker chip. So it's very important in this game to like look at a stack and be like, that is 5 chips. Yeah. Stacks never get higher than like 6. Yeah. But to be able to tell the difference between like 3, 4, 5, and 6, it means having a little bit of a thicker poker chip, and we'll look at some other things that we can do to make them easy to tell apart. So you'll get really nice markers for the favor, and then you'll also get nice tokens for Magic, the game's second currency. Those will probably be done in resin. One of the things that I feel like I really took away from Premiere is having a number of different materials in the box and having each of those materials kind of communicate a different thing about how the game works.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of leading into, we mentioned that we were going to have kind of those special components. Somebody had asked, are there going to be any secrets that we are revealing during the Kickstarter?
I don't know. Do you want to answer that question?
There are definitely stuff that has not been, I think, fully revealed or have been fully talked about.
Yeah, but it also like this isn't going to be the type of Kickstarter where we're going to hit you every day
with something
with like our card is a higher GSM now. Like,
Yeah.
there's a linen fit. No, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
There are some cool things that we have to show you, but it's not going to be one of those where there's just like lots of secrets falling out and all sorts of stuff.
I think the day that the Kickstarter launches, you will know everything.
Yes.
And then we will, throughout the campaign, is when we're going to take a step deeper to really dive in and really show you everything, like as like the components of the box, really what that looks like. I don't want to tell you guys, but we'll be able to kind of delve in deeper with that way. So I don't want to say secrets. I mean, there's secrets right now.
But this isn't a campaign built on secrets.
No. We'll be very transparent. Like the cover hasn't been revealed yet. That will be revealed. Everything like that. So you'll be able to see everything and get all the information I think you would absolutely need to be able to see if you want to purchase this. And then if you need more time to wait, we'll be digging more deeper and throughout as the campaign goes along. I think one of those being, so your designer diaries, where are those at during the campaign?
So I've been writing over the past like 3 months designer diaries on BGG. There are 11 now. They're long. You don't have to read them, but you might like them. So I'm going to be writing my last designer diary for now on Monday. And then I'll be doing shorter ones during the Kickstarter that will highlight the 6 suits and talk about different design elements behind each of the suits, how they work, what the kind of space is that they hollow out. After the Kickstarter's over, I will resume the general designer diaries on a much slower pace that will just kind of cover the game's development, how it grows and changes and all that. But it'll be a lot slower. Yeah.
I like how Patrick prefaced that secrets are that they haven't even seen all the cards yet. But other secrets, other than the cards and everything like that. How long will the Kickstarter be? I'm confident to say that it's going to be
21 days.
Yeah, it's going to be about 3 weeks. So it is 3 weeks. So
it is 3 weeks. It's now 3 weeks. You can't change it.
It's exactly that. Yep, we have said it live. No, it's also been that what I've been planning around. Let's see. What is the perks? Prizes. Kind of going outside what's inspired you to design Oath, are there any lesser-known works of fiction which influenced and supported your development of Oath? And I kind of want that one answered because your very first designer diary was about the books that you've read. And they actually specify by music.
Music that's influenced Oath?
Yeah. You talk about what you're listening to all the time.
I do, but like,
Nick is over there. He knows.
Let's see. Today I listened to every Big Thief album while I was working.
But none of it's influencing.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I listen to a lot of music.
Yeah.
It matters. It influences me in like a sideways way.
Yeah.
But it's not, I feel better about thinking about, because, okay, so when I'm reading, I actually shifted my reading list while working on this game because I wanted to kind of fill my head with the stuff that, the game is about. I didn't really, my music listening is so bounded to the seasons that there's no way a game project I'm working on is gonna rock it.
I'm only chuckling because Kyle said the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack has influenced him.
Yeah.
So at least we know.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. So what I will say about music is like I will shit at different phases in the project.
Yeah.
There's different stuff. So like this morning, very lots of editorial, a lot of like writing.
Yeah.
So it was very in like a Big Thief capacity. It's a big listen this morning. A bunch of like quiet Mount Eerie albums.
There you go.
So that stuff. Listen to a lot of Mount Eerie working on this game. It's like about loss.
Yeah.
It's heady. And then later in the project, things veer very hard towards hip hop when I have to get things done and quickly.
Yeah, you have the pace. I think it's more like increased by the pace of like what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, I've noticed like especially when writing, it's all explosions in the sky. Mm-hmm. I can't have anything else outside of like I can't words, it can't beat. It has to be like. Just
and Gates has a habit of coming into my office and listening to very loud music.
Oh.
And so she'll start talking and I'll be like, wait. Kanye's very loud right now and I need to turn it down.
What else was here? You mentioned, this is actually, you would like this. You mentioned on Twitter that a video game called Caves of Cud was an inspiration as a fan of video games. I'm curious, are there any video games particularly inspiring?
Well, I could talk about Caves of Cud for an hour right now. So, side note, we were playing last night and the last playtest session got derailed by Caves of Cud chat. which I then carried through to mention and then talk about today during lunch.
Yeah,
I'm
I was going to
obsessed
say,
with
like,
it.
Nick is
So there's
totally contributing.
So my video game diet is really weird. It is mostly competitive games that I've been playing for a decade or more.
Yeah.
So like StarCraft 2, Dota, Counter-Strike. Plays with my siblings
Yeah.
every night or every other night or so. These are like the ballast of my like gaming habit. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah.
to see some close
Yeah,
friends.
the vehicle.
We're gonna play a game of
Yeah.
Dota. We've been doing this for a decade.
Jeez.
And then outside of that, I play a lot of like 1 to 5 hour indies.
Yeah.
But there's sort of no room in my diet for like any AAA titles, and it's not that I don't like them. It's just like they don't. I have no zone at which I can like play them through or play through them.
Yeah.
For this game, I have been thinking a lot about roguelike design because one of the things that is when I think about replayability, I mean essentially this is the fact that every game blends into one another.
Yeah.
It isn't exactly like a permadeath roguelike characteristic, but I think it's like a step away from it. And one of the things that makes those games work is they have a robust enough system. So
Yeah.
let me slightly start over. When roguelikes broke into the more of the mainstream, like the Spelunky and games like that, there was a lot of emphasis placed on like permadeath, procedural generation.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, those things are really important. But the biggest thing, I think, the thing that like still brings people to games like ADOM, which is a fabulous roguelike, is that the core system is complex enough and expressive enough that when you include some items and some mechanisms in it, it can be recombined in so many different ways. And so I started playing Caves of Cud recently and things like Dead Cells and even Spelunky and really paying attention to like what are the elements that make this world feel so alive, that these tools feel so thematic and rich,
Yeah.
so that when you're talking about the games, somebody could overhear you and it would sound like you were telling a story,
Yeah.
but actually you're just speaking in terms of the language of the game.
Yeah.
And so I've been really interested in that line between like storytelling about games and also just talking about
Story
games.
and, yeah.
And so every single card in the game has. I mean, well, here I'll give an example.
Yeah, we
There's
can
one-
show the cards.
We'll show some cards. So the art is like filled with placeholders. We've got lots and lots of art, but like
Yeah.
we have more cards than art right now.
I mean, you were talking about storytelling, and the storytelling
so-
is right out there.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it. I'll highlight a couple of cards. I don't know how this is
It's
going
gonna-
to
yeah,
I'm going to
it's
let
gonna
it.
load.
There'll be a delay. So this is the acting
Actually-
troupe. It's okay. You don't. Just know that it's a card in the game.
It's a card.
It's a card in the game. There's a card in the game called Acting Troupe,
Oh, yeah.
which it gets to behave as suits that it's not. Which is like, well, that's a very obvious application
Yeah.
of like what it's doing thematically, but then that has very interesting ramifications in the game because you can use that to fake your way into getting influence or magic, to like sneak into a secret society. You could use that to shift the popularity numbers in a way that might be useful to you. And then like another card, for instance, Storyteller. This is, again, I don't know why I'm showing the art because this isn't the art of Storyteller, but just know that it's a card that exists, I promise. So Storyteller, the way it works is when you buy this thing, this privilege called the Darkest Secret, you immediately increase its value. So this is like thinking about what does a story do within the mechanisms of this world? Well, it's a way to insulate the mythology you're building around yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost a little bit like propaganda. And again, this card can do a lot of different things. It can be a defensive card, it can be an offensive card, and trying to like work through the design of the cards in such a way as to give them many, many uses and many ways of combining them. That's one of the reasons why it's a little hard to talk about replayability in the context of this game, because every set of 15 or 20 cards that's in active rotation will have a really different feel based
Yeah.
on the way the cards are combining. In the same way that like during a Dead Cells run, you had like these two grenades that behaved in a certain way that changed the style of play you built around it.
Yeah. Another question that's kind of coming up is, how is this different than every other Legacy game? Which I kind of want to
Super
just
different.
Yeah, I want to kind of briefly like mention. We've tried to veer away from talking about Legacy, at least.
It's hard. It's like a term that
Yeah.
we can't avoid because it's the best term for this thing.
Yeah, with what is in our known realm of us
Right,
like hobby
like-
gamers, for sure.
So, because what I'm trying to tap into here is there is a strand of game design in the 1970s and early 80s that essentially these were like campaign games,
yeah,
but they didn't have a preset campaign. So
No.
the one that I think about a lot is this game called Imperium, which was done by GDW. And one player played like the Rebel Alliance, another player played the Empire, very thin, like Star Wars style play.
Yeah.
But depending on how the game turned out, it kind of like set the stage for the next game. So if the Empire beat the Rebellion into a pulp, the next game the Rebellion is going to be a little more zealous and a little more active. The Empire has a different set of problems. And it was pretty basic, but it did this amazing thing where the game, it allowed itself to tell really big stories. And so I was thinking about this because as a game player, I can't play long games anymore. I've got 3 children, and I work too much. And so I just don't have time to like sit down and play like a 10-hour game.
Yeah.
But I love 10-hour games. If I had my way, I'd like to be playing TI like every weekend. It's like, that's my jam. I want to play 1817 twice a week.
Yeah.
For a year. That'd be great.
Your board game diet. How you want it to be.
Yeah, that's how I want it to be. And what bums me out a little bit about a lot of design is that in the rush to make like the simple sci-fi game or like the 90-minute like war game or something, the 90-minute Civ game is really the chief culprit here. It turns into a bit of a cartoon where it makes everything go very fast, like you're watching history on fast forward.
Yeah.
And so the core approach of this game is, what if instead of trying to put history on fast forward to get through the whole arc of human history in an hour, you instead say, no, we're going to do the exact same pace, but the game will fold itself up and set itself up very quickly. We think we can get people to set this game up in 3 minutes or less. And you can tell those big stories just over multiple sessions.
Yeah.
And this isn't like a super clever trick. Like D&D groups have been doing this since D&D's inception.
Yeah.
But it's a place I haven't really seen board games go. And then when legacy games kind of like burst onto the scene 6 or 7 years ago, they were essentially like, they were doing this is why I'm so hesitant to compare it to a legacy game.
Yep.
Because legacy games to me are much more like storytelling games, and they're much more like a season of television, right? I don't think it's any surprise that Pandemic is like
Pandemic
season one, right?
Season 2,
this is not a season of television. This is a lot more like a free-form campaign.
Following campaign,
Yeah, so it's, with a persistent world.
Yeah.
So it was just like, it was a branch. I feel like once legacy designers saw the season model, which was, the model that started that. So, if I think about campaign games, there was a branch that started with like Risk Legacy.
Yep.
And then everybody who wanted to work in that space started making like season model.
Yep.
And this is like this goes like back to the root of the tree, the pre-Rob Davio root.
Yeah.
And then says like, okay, what if we went back to those like 80s campaign games and we approach some of their questions with a little bit more of a modern design sensibility?
Yeah.
What might be at the other end of that road? And that's what this game's trying to do.
And I think even when we were talking about like the marketing, how we're going to be talking about this game, we talked about that extensively. I think for a couple of weeks is that like we are not going to use legacy game intentionally, everything like that, just because of the space of where it already lives now.
Right.
And that this game doesn't quite live in that space.
Yes. I would not want someone who like was like, I love Pandemic Legacy
Season
2.
Right.
Like this, it depends on why you liked that game, but it's very likely this is like not yours type of game.
Yeah, and also just to like say that too, like you don't rip up anything. You're not putting any cards. Nothing.
There will be
is
nothing like
changing.
hidden under the insert. Sorry.
Don't rip open the box.
Yeah, please don't.
Don't
when you see it, it'll be very beautiful. Don't just start tearing it up. And part of that too is like there is a trend towards games as the one-off experience. Like you have to, if you don't win, and I see this as a designer, I see this in like people giving design advice where you're like, you need to wow your audience in like 10 minutes.
Yep.
Or like if you don't have them by the end of the first half of your first game, you've lost them.
Yeah.
And this game isn't like that. There's a learning curve. It will take you 2 or even 3 games. I think it's a little bit more like a ledge than root, where like it takes 2 or 3 games to hop up onto the ledge.
Yeah.
And then there's a normal learning curve. But you do like, there is a bit of a wall.
Yeah.
But you have to give it time. There's a lot to explore. Like, this isn't a game that is built for you to play it once or even 10 times. Like this is a game built for you to play it a lot.
Yeah.
And if you are interested in going deep into a game, I think you will find a lot to explore in the game. And if you're not, that's great. You're being served by the mass, the majority of the market right now. So go play those games.
Yeah. Talk about the teach. You've been mentioning it briefly here and there.
So this game is a real funny teach. I have done it during Unplugged. I would routinely get through the overall pitch and teach in about 15 minutes. And if I was sitting at the table and we were going to play for the first time, and people like just play as fast as we can, I can teach for about 6 minutes, and then we can just start playing.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the game, you know all of the systems. On the other hand, if you want to do an exhaustive, like every single rule, very full teach, it's probably going to be like a 40-minute teach or even more, just because there's a lot of
like
little,
sitting down with your
and just like you want to understand every little element, you can do that. What I will say about the teach is that the complexity of the game is basically like learning 2 root factions at the same time. Like if I had to teach someone from scratch, like the Eerie and the Woodland Alliance. Yeah. And I picked those 2 because those are both like a little obtuse. They're not complicated, they're just obtuse. And this game isn't complicated, but it's a little strange. And so once you figure those out though, the thing that this game has that Root doesn't is in Root, turns take a minute, maybe 2 minutes to work through everything. In this game, turns are very fast.
Oh, yeah.
Once you know what's going on, your playtime for this game will come down very sharply. We can routinely play a 4-player game of this in an hour or less.
Yeah, which, I mean, you guys did it. I think that whole stream was an hour and a half, and that was about...
And we were streaming, which usually...
And bantering, too. Yeah, which I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've mentioned in The Office that, like, even though a game session of this will be maybe 45 minutes to an hour, it's the end of it, your game night session with it is determined by where you want to go in the campaign.
Right. Yeah, so if you want, like, look, you made barbecue for your friends, you want to, like, really have a big game night, you can play this 3 times in a row and essentially play, like,
find something different.
A 3-generational story, and it will give you the experience of playing, like, a really big, meaty game. Yeah. You could also just play this, as a night ender or something over several weeks. There are different ways that you can approach it.
And Dan Thoreau in his preview covered it really well. He covered around his generations and how the game progressed. Question that people have been asking is about kind of want to touch 2-player and then touch solo. Okay,
cool. Well, I can do them in the kind of the same breath. So this game will feature an automa design it's sort of like a bot, but I can refer folks to Jeff Egglestein's excellent talk about the history of solo design. But it is a sort of a virtual player who's playing by a slightly different set of rules, who takes the role of the Chancellor. It's a pretty fully featured bot. We're still in development, but players will be able to, the bot will make offers of citizenship that if players accept, they will then have the classic infighting prestige battle, like court drama, that is sometimes featured in the game. Yeah. Or you can just try to beat it from the outside, in which case you have that experience in the game. The bot will work either as a tete-a-tete or as in a 3-player context. So you can do either one, and with very minimal scaling on the bot, and it'll work just fine. But it essentially is giving you the experience of something close to a 3-player game.
Yeah. Also, because we had mentioned at the very beginning of the stream, so it's 1 to 6 players. People were asking, what led you to the 6-player decision?
Well, there was a single piece that we needed to make it possible.
One small piece.
Yeah, so it was funny. I try to stay away lately from being too focused on what's the component ask of the game. When I was working on this game, I asked Patrick, like, hey, can I make a game that was like a little bigger than Root, a little more expensive than Root? And when he said yes, I thought, okay, cool. So I'm gonna make a game and not really think about the components and just think about what the game is demanding. And at one point, when I was talking to Nick, it was clear that, like, because of some changes to the design, by adding a single piece, you could essentially have a 6th player. And a single piece is not very expensive. It might be just a penny or a few pennies. Yeah. So like, it just, it's just not that expensive from our side. So we had this option before us then of like, well, we could pull out a player and then lower the cost and save some money, and then maybe we could even sell them later, or we could just give people the 6th player. Yeah. We hadn't been testing the game excessively at 6, but it will work at 6 just fine, and we will do some development on it to make sure that's the case. But even if you don't play with the 6th player, this was like, do you want just another color choice? And when we sort of talked about it with the production folks and everybody at the studio, everyone was in favor of just giving people the 6th player, and it was nice to just be able to give you guys all more and not really have to worry about it.
And I did submit the BGG change today, so
Yes.
it will be changed. Okay, so it looks like we have 10 minutes before we're going to wrap up. Nick, is there anything prominent on Facebook? And then also, people have been asking.
I've kind of been touching on this, but
Yeah.
I think in general one of the larger ones has been like, if you were going to tell people, one sentence, well, how is this not a legacy game? Because still a lot of things sound like it.
There's nothing pre-scripted.
That's
Yeah.
This is, I think, even more than the no end point, even more than the don't tear up any cards. There is nothing pre-scripted.
Yeah.
I do not know what stories you're going to tell with this game. I did not write them.
Yeah. Because that's a good point, too. At least I've known whenever I describe to my friends, the legacy game, when I mention pre-scriptedness, they're like, hold on, it's pre-scripted? I was like, yeah, they're leading you to rip up 2BA, and they're leading you to...
And even
to
in the more
reveal this.
robust legacy games where it's branching,
Yeah.
the number of branches is several orders of magnitude higher in this.
Yeah.
Just because it's up to the players.
Yeah. But no, that's a good question.
Here's a good one. Also, somebody asked, what is your personal favorite part of the design that you unfortunately had to see go?
That's a great question.
Oh, yeah. What garlic
So
did
much
you
has
try?
gotten cut.
Yeah, I mean,
Your
that's all.
darlings.
No.
darlings.
Yeah, so...
You had to pick one.
Okay, I'll pick
One
one.
darling.
I'll pick the easiest darling, the easiest one to cut. We had this totally bananas combat system that I
Oh.
loved. It had these little shields that you'd flip up, and you had to make these blind bids.
I remember this.
So the combat system, it doesn't. You may not know this even after you play the game, but the combat system in this game is very heavily inspired by Dune's combat.
Yeah.
It just is. It's a little meaner than Dune's, and then it's also exploded over several turns and rounds and combats rather than in a single battle. And when I was kind of trying to remix that space, I built this system with blind bids in it. That was essentially a very full mini game that you could play, that you could
And go have fun with.
you could build it as a small box game. And I loved it and did not want to get rid of it. And then, unfortunately, I think I even won over some folks in the office who came to like it, despite that it was very goofy. It might have gotten even more goofy. And then there was a certain point where the rest of the design was shaping up.
Yeah.
And it was clear the product was just over its complexity budget, and we had to cut something.
Yeah.
And actually, the biggest determinant there wasn't. It wasn't actually even the complexity budget as much as it was the time. It was very. One of the things that I love about Root's combat system is that you finish combat in a single roll.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to avoid what I think it was the StarCraft problem for people who've played the old Fantasy Flight game StarCraft, or even Twilight Imperium for that matter. Sometimes the battles can get real long.
Oh.
And if you're not in them, they're kind of boring. So I was very important that the combat system was... So there's a very funny trade-off. I wrote about this in one of the design diaries about the combat. You can either have something that is very complex and very short, or very simple and very long.
Yeah.
Which is almost a paradox, but with this game, the whole argument of the game was you need to play it more than once. So okay, I would rather reward players who give the time to the design with a short combat system that's really robust than punish them with a simple system that takes a long time to resolve.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is there anything else, Nick? The rondelle.
Yes.
People are talking about the
Oh
rondelle.
man, the rondell's gonna be back. I've already put it in a different project.
Yeah.
People asking if there will be several pledge levels. I think you've touched on that. Yep, just
One.
One
Yeah, I guess to kind of, since we're wrapping up, rattle through the Kickstarter stuff that we do know.
So what do we know about the Kickstarter? The Kickstarter is on the 14th.
Next Tuesday.
If you want to be notified, you can click on any number of links that are pinned to any number of Leader Games related
stuff.
profiles.
And Nick will drop in the link to the Kickstarter preview page. And that actually has you, wherever you're logged in on Kickstarter, that will notify you.
It'll
Kickstarter
notify
will
you. So it's going to be on the 14th.
Yeah.
It will be a simple campaign.
Yeah.
It will have a single pledge level. We'll talk more about the design. I am going to be, I don't know if I've said that, I'm going to share the rules with everybody on launch day.
Yes, yeah, I think we could say that. The rules will be shared launch day.
Folks don't need to bother commenting with their millions of typo concerns. Don't worry, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But they're in pretty good. They're in pretty good spot. I have no objection to sharing them. We'll also be launching a gameplay video where we talk through some of the stuff. We've got lots of fun stuff that we'll be showing throughout the campaign.
Anything, yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I know that cover will be shown before we launch. That's what I want to share about that.
Yeah,
the cover
I
will
can't
be
wait.
shown. We know what the cover looks like.
Mm-hmm.
If I say that's anyone's secret, that's the secret we'll keep. So,
Yeah.
there we go. Time of launch, it'll be that morning.
We're in Central Time.
We
so-
are in Central Time. So if you're asleep in your country, I'm sorry.
Yeah. But we don't do early birds, so
They're
don't
open for-
worry.
It's open for 21 days.
Yeah,
It's
it's
open for
open-
21
it's
days.
fine.
Like,
Yeah, there's no early birds. You'll definitely be there to join us on day one for
Yeah.
sure.
and I should say, for those who haven't backed the Leader Games Kickstarter before, our Kickstarters are real fun. They're just like parties. The comment section is really good. I will be like living in that comment section day one. I'm sure Patrick, and Carol, and
Yeah.
Gates will be there too. We love answering questions about stuff. We try to think. We think about our Kickstarters as an opportunity to like get to talk to you guys and
Yeah.
really everybody gets to know each other. And it's just kind of like a party we're throwing. So come to our party.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Any stuff notes, Jim? We already talked about the TTS. I think we're super good. If anybody has any like wrap up questions that they want to ask about Oath or the Kickstarter, we already talked about solo play,
Mm-hmm.
legacy train games. Like we talked.
Legacy train games.
Legacy train games.
I'm not working on any train games.
Would you work on a train game?
No, they're too close to my heart.
If you,
I lack all
it's like
objectivity.
if you do the thing that you love,
Yeah.
you know, like you can't. I'm not saying that at all.
No, I will. So one thing, this is a weird thing to drop in the end of this, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Sure.
I gave a talk about like designing at Leader Games and like what makes a project a good project for us, and like one of the top thing after some reflection on the past couple of years was the design has to feel urgent. Like if we don't do the design, it won't exist or happen.
Yeah.
So when we're getting pitches from people, if the design seems really good, like and so good that like another company might want it, I always tell the person like, oh yeah, you should just give it to that company.
Yeah.
Like because we're really interested in like the odd ducklings.
The
And
really weird stuff.
with the stuff I've done and worked on so far has been political games and strategy games, which is a place I feel like is both very well served and also very poorly served in the market. And I hope that Oath adds a lot to that conversation.
Yeah.
Train games, I got nothing to add. I think the folks who design
They're
train
there.
games doing great jobs. I got no A+.
Much respect.
A+. It's the same. It's like party games. I don't want to design a party game because I think everyone's doing a good job. I'm just going to keep playing the party games.
Yeah. I think maybe to wrap up the whole conversation very broadly, and Patrick can say to this also in the chat, is what was the influence that you're hoping Oath to have in tabletop gaming? It's heavy.
Ugh, that's a
It's heavy.
scary
Big
question.
question.
I know.
I
We're gonna
think
wrap it up
I
with that,
want
though.
Oath, if I just say it's about one thing, it's about the end of the game. And so I want people to think about the end of the game a little differently.
Yeah.
So I will say right now, one thing about this game is if you're a person who is made uncomfortable by the thought of king making, you should definitely play Oath. Because it is gonna
Yeah.
it's immersion therapy. You're gonna get right in there, and it was funny. It was like happening last night when we were playing, where someone was like, "Oh, I don't like. Can I even make that? Am I even allowed to make that choice?" And I was like, "Just think about the possibility that this game is linked in a campaign. Does very different things with how you think about the meta and fairness."
Yep.
And I have found personally, and with the folks I've played with, it actually opens up new ways of thinking about the end of the game that I think then make the game itself a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
And also, like it doesn't feel as bad.
Yeah.
And so if the game is one thing, I hope it kind of changes how we think a little bit about the way games can end.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap up. Thank you, everybody who watched. We are going to be continuing these live streams for the whole duration of the campaign on Thursdays. I think next week is only going to be the Odd Duckling one being at 6 p.m., but we're going to be playing on the TTS. Cole's going to be playing with the guys from Space Cat? Nope.
Yep.
Space Cats, Peace Turtles.
Yeah, you got it.
Ella Loves Board Games and Maple Lady. And then we're going to have some streams with Kyle Farron talking about the art, and then we'll have a whole office staff game at the very end of the campaign.
That hopefully we're just going to do. We're going to do a rolling game, right?
Yeah, we're going to do a rolling game. It will be towards the end. You know, we won't be preparing for a Kickstarter anymore.
Yeah, it'd be great.
So we'll have the time. But definitely, I think we'll drop the link in if you guys want to be notified when we launch on the 14th. But other than that, we'll see you guys next Thursday.
Thank you all.
So, bye.